Hello everybody and welcome to my desktop. So, this is a bit unusual, isn't it? We're not actually playing a game in this particular series. We are, in fact, making a game. And I do have a bit of a game concept in mind. I know I've mentioned quite a few ideas on the channel over the past little while, but this isn't actually one of those that we're going to be making starting today. So, just a bit of real quick background here on what we're going to be making. And also, in case you're wondering, Paradox music in the background, because Paradox is amazing. It's maybe a little quiet. Let me bump that up slightly. Yeah, that seems good. Okay, so, what type of game are we making? Well, I was thinking about doing something, you know, nice and complex to really follow up the Kerbal Space Program land on everything mantra by saying that it was too simple and we needed something harder, like an MMO. I still want to make an MMO, and I think it's a perfectly viable thing to do. In fact, I've got a few projects started that have most of the groundwork laid. But what we're doing is not that. I've been in more of a business simulation mood lately, and I think that's going to be more along the lines of what we're going to go for, some sort of a business sim. Now, I've given some thought to this previously, and what I have come up with is it's more logistics focused than anything else. So what this is going to be is essentially it's not going to be very realistic, okay? First things first, this is going to be designed for fun, not for realism. So I guess you can say it's not really a simulation, but it kind of is a business sim. But essentially, we're going to be playing, like, the post office. And it's going to be great. Probably not going to be great. But it's going to be exciting. Okay, so first things first, let's get Unity. So we're making this with Unity. We are... At least right now, I'm going to be using Unity 2018.2.6F1. Last I checked, that was the most recent version, but I guess we'll find out. You can see all of my millions of unfinished projects there. We're going to make a new one, because what could possibly go wrong? And let's just name this Operation Logistics. That is not how spelling works. That's better. Okay, and this is going to be a 3D project. No, not 2D. No, not 3D with extras. This is just going to be a standard 3D project. Now, ground rules. Everything in this project has to be made from scratch. And now the music is a bit loud. There, we'll try halfway there. Everything in this project has to be made from scratch. No assets, no scripts. Everything has to be scratch made. So let's go ahead and do this. Oh, textures as well. Textures, materials, all of that. Literally everything made from scratch. So let's create the project. Oh, can't use a colon. Fine. There we go. Oh, okay. Go ahead and don't block Unity Windows Firewall. Thank you very much. Okay, so project is now being made. First things first, we are going to be needing a hexagon, because I want this to be a hex-based game. So let's go ahead and fire up Blender. Excellent. Okay, do I have screen cap keys on? The answer is no, so let's go ahead and go to User Preferences here, Add-ons, Install Add-on from File, because for some reason they decided... Let's go to desktop. They decided not to have it default to have screen cap anymore. So screencast keys on. Thank you very much. Okay, did that work? I don't think that worked. Screen cap. Oh, right. We have to turn it on in the tools menu. I forgot about that. Okay, so here we are. Screencast keys is now working. Fantastic. You can now see when I press buttons. Great. Okay, so first things first. I do want to say I'm going to try to go over everything I'm doing, but I'm going to be moving kind of quickly-ish. This is not going to be hugely polished. This is not a tutorial series. This is a Let's Program series. I'll try to cover what I'm doing and why, but it also won't be hugely polished. I don't know where I'm going with all of this yet. So I'm going to go ahead and delete everything in the default scene and set the 3D cursor back to 000. There we go. And let's just go ahead and create ourselves a primitive circle. Going to go into the top view. And we don't need 32 vertices. Let's just take that on down to 6 vertices. There we go. Now the question is, do we want pointy top or flat top hexes? Well, we don't actually have to decide that right now. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go into edit mode here and fill this in. So first things first, I'm just going to put an edge between these two vertices, hit W, specials menu, subdivide. So now we have a vertex in the exact middle there. Fantastic. And now I'm just going to make some triangles with the F key. There we go. Excellent. Okay, now I kind of want this to be a little cartoony in feel, and so I'm wondering if I want to put a border onto these. Just a very small border. And I think I'm going to. So I'm going to select all of this with the box select mode with B, and I'm going to hit E to extrude, and then right-click to immediately get out of that extrusion. And then I'm just going to scale down the extrusion 0.99. That should be plenty. I just want a very, very thin border here. Oh my, okay. So we have some face overlap going on here. And I'm wondering why. Let's go to display. Actually, it's under shading, and let's do back face culling. Okay. So, yeah, it looks like we have multiple faces here. Yeah, we definitely have multiple faces going on. So let's go ahead and delete these faces. And then we need to flip this around in the shading UV. I'm just going to flip direction on this normal. And then all of these are facing the wrong direction as well. So I'm just going to Alt right click if I can get the correct position. There we go. Alt right click on the edge to select the edge loop. And then simply flip direction. Okay, so now we have ourselves a hex with a slight border. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add 2 material slots to this. Material.001 I'm just going to call hex material. Material.002 I'm going to call border material. Now, we may want to merge these together later on into a merged material, but for right now, this is okay. So I'm going to go ahead and select everything with hex material, okay? Let's go ahead and select everything with border. Nothing has border material. Excellent. Exactly what we want. I'm now going to assign border material to our border, and I'm just going to, for now, make that black. And now I'm seeing that we have multiple in our border as well. That's interesting. Oh, I see what happened. I gotcha. Okay, I'm going to select all of these faces and just delete faces. Okay, so what happened is for some reason it didn't move in the borders, so we just need to do that manually. Next, I'm going to go ahead and select all of these edges here and delete only edges and faces with our box select tool. So delete only edges and faces. And then now we can grab that and do that. Fantastic. And we just then need to make sure that we grab the inside vertex on all of these. And there we go. So now we have ourselves a hex with a border. It's not hugely demanding in terms of triangles, considering it's 18 triangles. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. Oh hey, there's a new version of the Unity editor. Oh boy. We will skip that version for now. I might update later. It shouldn't be a big deal. So I'm going to go ahead and save the Blender file in this folder here. So let me just show in Explorer. There we go. Fantastic. Okay, so here we have our assets, and this is the folder we want to save this in. So I'm just going to move into there in Blender, and now that we're here, I'm going to save this as Hex.blend. Sure. We can always move it later. And now that it's saved, I'm going to go ahead and close Blender. Unity should detect it and import it, and indeed it did. Let's make sure that we keep this clean. So let's put a folder, call it Meshes. And there we go. There's our hex mesh. So we can put it in the game, like so. And there you have it. We've got ourselves a hex with a small border. Excellent. So I just want to check this material here. We can't edit it from there. That's fine. We can always change these materials later. So the first thing we need to do is have it be generating a bit of a map for us. And this is going to be procedural. So let's go ahead and go to Assets, Create, Folder, Scripts. First things first, we just need to create a hex map. Now, there are a few different ways to do this. So let's go ahead and go to Create C# script, and I'm going to create a just overarching script here, and I'm going to call this Hex Manager. So let's go ahead and open that up as soon as Visual Studio gets around to opening, and it opened on my other monitor, which is handy. There we go. Okay, so for the Hex Manager, we really probably don't need an update, so we can get rid of that. That's unnecessary. And now we need to be thinking, okay, what do we need for a Hex Manager? What is our goal for this class? So let's go ahead and create a comment up here, and this comment will be, what are we trying to do with this class? So this class is responsible, if I can type, for, well, what is this class responsible for? What do we want it to do? Well, we want it to generate the map. And furthermore, once the map is generated, we want it to have some ongoing managerial duties so that we can like ask it, hey, what's this hex? And then it tells us, and things like that. So this class is responsible for creating and managing, that's not how you spell, creating and managing the hex map. There we go. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and blow this up a little bit so that it's a little easier to read on YouTube. There we go. That's what percent is that? Where does it say in Visual Studio? I don't actually know. Oh, 161%. Let's have it at maybe 150%. That should be fine. Excellent. Okay, so this class is responsible for creating and managing the hex map. So the first thing that we need is definitely going to be a reference to the prefab for generating the map, which for right now we're going to have be just a base hex. We haven't made this prefab yet. We'll get to that in a moment. But first we need a reference to the prefab used to create the hexes. And that is going to be public game object base hex. Okay, so we just need that. Now let's hop into Unity again, and we need to create ourselves a prefabs folder. So let's create ourselves a folder, call it prefabs. Excellent. And now we'll go into the meshes and we'll pull out a hex. Now, there are a couple of things about this. First, you'll notice that we have a rotation. That's from the Blender import. Blender uses a Z-up coordinate system, whereas Unity uses a Y-up coordinate system. That is to say, in Blender, the Z-axis position moves it up and down, whereas, as you can see in Unity, it doesn't. In Unity, the Y-axis position moves it up and down. So this rotation is just to make sure that that remains the same. However, we probably want to have this encapsulated into something else. So let's go ahead and create an empty. I don't want that to be a child of the hex. And we'll just call this mesh. And then we'll rename this game object here, which I'm just clicking on the name with it selected in order to rename it, just to be clear. Let's go ahead and call this object base hex. So this is the first iteration of the hex. So let's go ahead and go down to our prefabs and just drag the base hex into our prefabs. Okay, we can now get rid of this because that's saved, and let's create an empty, and I'm going to simply call this Hex Manager. And we're going to add ourselves our component. Apparently it thinks we want a sprite mask. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for a hex manager. And then it wants a base hex, so we'll go ahead and grab that from our prefabs folder and slot that right in. There's no reason for this to not be at 000. It's just where the camera was pointing. It decided not to put it there. Theoretically, there's not a reason to have it not be at 000 either, but I just like to try to keep things clean. So let's go ahead and do that. Fantastic. And now that we're here, we have ourselves a base hex. So we don't necessarily want to always do this in start, so let's create ourselves a new function. This function, and this function is going to be responsible for what exactly? Well, it's going to be responsible for generating the map. So this function is responsible for generating the map. Okay, so first things first, we are going to need a couple of things. We're already using system.collections.generic by default. That is good. So first thing that we're going to need here is, and I think we're going to do this privately. I don't think we're going to expose this, but internally we're going to be storing this probably in a list of lists of hexes. So private, we don't technically have to say private, but I like to be clear. Private list. We'll use GameObject for now. We may switch that over, and we don't need parentheses there. What am I talking about? So a list of the list, so this will be simply map. And we'll go ahead and initialize this. Equals new list GameObject. As long as it's initialized, that's fine. It won't have anything in it to start with. And I don't like to have that on the same line as start. It's just a... It's just a personal thing. Okay, so first thing that we need beyond that is we're going to... Actually, I might as well comment this. This is where the hexes are stored. Excellent. Okay, so here we definitely need to get ourselves our generate map function. Do we want to return anything is the question at this point. I'm not sure that there's strictly a need to return something. We can always come back and edit it later. So for now, let's go with a public function, and we're not going to return anything for now. So we're going to go with a public void, and then just simply generate map. Okay, so that's our function. Now we are going to need a couple of parameters here. Now, let's think about what all is going to be encapsulated in this map, shall we? So first things first, in terms of what is encapsulated in this map, I think that we are going to go ahead and say that there is height, there is water, and then as far as tile types go, roads will be important, railways will be important, airports would be important as well, harbors potentially for shipping over water, but none of that really fits into what we're trying to do right now, which is just generating the terrain of the map. Well, right now we're just trying to generate a map, but some of these things will be important later. We can add in a lot of that as we go along. So, first things first, let's go ahead and put in a variables comment here. And, well, actually I'm not going to call it variables. That's not the right term. I'm going to call it parameters. There we go. So, we're definitely going to be needing 2 for starters. And we're going to go with width, height. Okay, so this is going to be the width and height of the map. Who would have thought? There's no reason to have any sort of floating point numbers for those at all, so those can be integers. So we're going to go ahead and go for an int width, int height, like so. So this now takes a width and a height and doesn't do anything with it at all. There are a couple more things that we're going to need, but for right now, let's make some bad assumptions, shall we? So let's go ahead and just assume that these are square tiles of a particular size. They definitely aren't, but it'll give us a starting point. A bad starting point, but we'll fix it in a little bit. So first things first, let's go ahead and put in a for loop for int I equals 0. I is less than width, I++. Okay, so that's just going to iterate through width times, and I will tell us which time we are going through. So, for example, if our width is 50, it won't iterate through more than 50 times, and I will tell us which one we're currently on. So if we've gone through 35 times already, and we're partway through the 36th, I will equal 36. So that'll tell us where exactly we are in the loop. So let's go ahead and comment this. Loop through... we're not really looping through the map, but we're looping through the size of the map. Okay, inside of this loop, we'll do a second loop, since this is a 2D map-ish, for int j equals 0. J is less than height, j++. Okay, so it's going to just loop through, assuming that the map is essentially square. And at each point, we will know where we are because we are at ij. And let me see if I can explain that a little bit better by doing this. So, what we're going to be doing here is we're going to say, here, every time we start a new horizontal line, let's go ahead and say map.add, and then this is going to be not a quote. This is going to be a list of game objects. So we want to just create a new list of game objects, like so. So every time we start a new row, we create ourselves a new list of game objects and add it to the map. So that way we can just access very, very easily this way. And again, this assumes that this is a square map. This is not a square map. We will get to that. So now we are in our height, our vertical rows, if you will. So we need to create ourselves a new game object. So game object, new object, equals instantiate, and we are going to instantiate base hex. At what position is the question? So we can do a vector3 position quaternion rotation. We'll come back to the position in a moment. We'll do quaternion.identity. Probably won't be right, but we'll fix that in a little bit. So what position do we want to go at? Well, let's go ahead and calculate that ourselves. Vector3, actually, yeah, vector3 position. Actually, we'll just go with pose. Position is a used class, or used name. Vector3 position equals, we'll go with something really, really, really dumb. This is not going to work. Equals new vector3 ij0. Now, I said earlier that y is the vertical, so we should go 0, j. Now, as far as I'm concerned, x and y are both horizontal. But we can just go ahead and plug this in. And now if we run this, it'll do nothing because we're not calling it. So we'll need to call it in the start. And so we'll go ahead and generate map. And we'll say that it's, I don't know, 20 by 20 for right now. That's probably not going to be where we're going to keep it. But now it will generate something horrible. This won't work. Okay, so it gave us this. We're on maximize on play. So I'm going to go ahead and not maximize on play so that we can actually see here. And you can see it gave us this, which is very, very wrong. Definitely not what we're looking for at all. But hey, it's a start. So I think with that, I'm going to go ahead and end this first episode, and in the second episode, we will get the hex map properly laid out and maybe start working on some height. See you all then.